Greetings, it is I, Tentus Narban Dracovin, Lord and Emperor of the Dracovin Empire, and welcome. It is time to continue my discussion on anime series, reviewing them for you, and then giving you some information on how you can use them in your BESM games, your Big Eyes Small Mouth games. So let's continue where we left off. I've got a couple series which are a little older, and then I've got two from 2015. Now let's talk about the series which are a little older. Today I have Fairy Tail and Suisei no Gargantua. Let's start with Fairy Tail. Now, Fairy Tail is set in a fantasy-type world where wizards and mages are very important. They're one of the top jobs in the world. And they arrange themselves in, of course, guilds. Guilds of wizards and mages. Now, these guilds then are given various jobs where they go out and help the general population. We focus on Lucy. She runs away from home, effectively, because she wants to join a wizard's guild. And she runs into Natsu, a member of the very rowdy, very rambunctious, very interesting guild of Fairy Tail, which the series is named after. She ends up eventually getting invited into joining Fairy Tail, and her various misadventures of Lucy, Natsu, and many of the other members of Fairy Tail are what the series focuses on. So it focuses on the guild itself, and of course we oftentimes see it through Natsu's or Lucy's eyes, but it's the misadventures that the guild gets into, the adventures they do, the various things that are going on revolving around them that make up the bulk of the adventures of the anime. Now it's an action series. They get into magical battles with various opponents, other guilds they can compete with, various dark guilds, kind of evil characters, various monsters, demons, dragons, things like that they get into battles with, so there's plenty of action. Of course, it's a fantasy. It's set in a fantasy world with magic and mysticism, dragons and demons and various things. So, of course, it's fantasy. And it's a comedy. There's a lot of funny things that occur during it. Little jokes, little, comical situations that end up happening that drive a lot of the very funny moments. And I rate this one a 5. It's actually a very excellent series. It's an ongoing both anime and manga series. I would recommend checking out the manga, of course, because it kept going. And they've done 2 seasons so far of anime. Hopefully, they'll do some more. Now, if you're using this in a BESM game, I recommend 500 points. You're going to make your characters members of Fairy Tail. Of course, these members will be members of the guild. Granted, you could theoretically use another guild if you really wanted to, or make up one of your own, but I do recommend keeping with the obvious one. Now, your players are probably going to be their own characters that they're going to make up, putting into the guild. It's the more likely thing that they're going to want to do. And of course, they're going to interact with famous members of the guild from the anime and manga that are NPCs at this point in time. They're going to go on various jobs and missions and effectively go out to get paid. It's going to be this juxtaposition about their sort of normal life at the guild, which they're just kind of getting into little misadventures with that too, competing with each other, getting a drink, some food, making conversations, learning things about each other, and then going on these various missions, which will face different dangers. Of course, you could make the missions as simple as you wanted to. You could make them big world-shaking ones, like some of the ones that occur in the anime and the manga. You could make any kind of mixture between the two about how important these missions are going to be and how critical they are and overall to the effects of the guild. If it draws in more members of the guild, things like that occur. The other important aspect is you can insert your characters anywhere in the timeline. There are various events which alter the way that the guild works and various things in the timeline that with time skips and other events that occur, so your characters can pop in at any point into this effective timeline and show themselves at that point. So it's up to you when you sort of want to insert them in there into this basically timetable of what's going on. So let's move on and talk about Suisei no Gargantua. So this is set in a distant future where we're out in space, where humanity is banded together and are constantly at war with these aliens, Hidezoe. They're these kind of alien creatures which can exist out in space, kind of tentacled monsters. We focus on Lado, this young, basically, boy that's in a military, and he's in his, basically, exosuit chamber, this kind of mechanical exosuit. During this massive battle in which they're attempting to destroy a Hidezoe super weapon, he gets kind of knocked off into a wormhole. After 6 months in suspended animation, he is awakened aboard this ship called the Gargantua. He's on this kind of ship where there's these primitive nomadic humans, primitive by his standards and his technological standards, that have sort of gathered up his vessel, and he awakens there and finds out that, these are humans, but they're on this basically ocean world, floating around on this kind of massive collection of ships that make a basic city, Gargantua. Now, he eventually does learn that very quickly that this is Earth, the original homeworld of humanity, and effectively this is the remnants of humanity that stayed on Earth while a large group of humanity went out to the world to fight the Hidezoe. And these are what's left over here on these kind of... And now it's an ocean world almost. It's just, they're floating out in the water. And his integration into that society, and of course his relationship with one of the people there, Amy, as his first friend that he's actually ever had, military kind of relationships otherwise, are what drive this series and make it very interesting, that he kind of learns to be more human in amongst these more primitive humans than what he's used. If you're using this in a BESM game, I'd recommend 450 points. You're going to make your people a team of people from out in space, from basically the space base that they were in the Hidezoe War, and they've crash landed together. You're going to basically each have of them with their own chamber, and you're going to put them on one of these fleet ships. Whether it's the Gargantia, or one you want to design on your own, it's completely up to you. But effectively, then they're going to join with them and try to make a life here on this new world as a group. And of course, they're going to get into their own misadventures as this team, basically trying to work together, find out jobs they could do. Some of them might go off and try to do their own jobs. Others, they might just want to work together, trying to find one thing together, testing stuff out, learning the various ways that the ship works, and trying to help maintain it, and sort of find a new life on this world that's technically their home world, but far off from where they were, far off from the war that they were once fighting. Sort of settle down from this war, and kind of learn about what the version of the Hidezoe that actually exists on Earth is, and what the strange history related to the war against them is, and why they're still on Earth, and not the same kind of threat that they were out in space. So let's move on. I do have 2 series from, of course, that have had representation in 2015. High School DxD, and of course, Robot Girl Z. Let's start with High School DxD, because I'll give a caveat on this one. This one is sometimes a hard pill to swallow, because it is very perverted. It really is. They really knock home perversion on this one. But the storyline and characters are actually really interesting, which is one of the reasons I'm actually listing it here. And actually I did enjoy it, even though it can get very bad sometimes. That's the best way I can say. Very. But let's talk about it. We focus on Cocoa Academy, which is a former girls' school, and it's now an integrated school, so boys can go to this school now. The only thing but normal people don't know, is that there are actually students here that are angels, fallen angels, and devils that attend this school. So it's an interesting grouping of characters that go to this school. We focus on Suisei. He's this kind of junior at the school, so he's second year high school, and he is kind of known to be this kind of pervert. He's kind of definitely got that reputation. He gets invited to this one girl out, like, he thinks for a confession. She turns out to be a fallen angel and effectively tries to kill him for various reasons, and pretty much succeeds at it. He gets saved, in a way, by Suisei, a character that's very important in the school, and is the whole head of this occult studies club. He then wakes up and finds out that she effectively saved his life, and she is a devil. He's been reincarnated as a devil, basically under her powers, to be one of her important servants, those that would work for her various tasks, for her rulership, because she is a noble devil. So he finds out that he is under her sway to a degree, but he also finds out that he himself can recruit people under his basically purview, and he effectively becomes more and more powerful as he defeats more enemies and keeps trying to sort of win this affection of Suisei, but also kind of dealing with other girls and other members of the occult research society and various other devils, angels, and fallen angels along the way, and others too. Vampires are another one, yokai. The list goes on of the kind of creatures and supernatural encounters he gets to along his adventures, all while still maintaining the fact that he's a big pervert. Of course, this is an action. They get into some really awesome battle scenes using their basic devil powers, fighting with other devils, with angels, fallen angels, whatever kind of calls for at the time is going to be kind of awesome battles against other kind of rivals in the various ways that things are going on. Of course, fantasy, because there's magical powers, devils, angels, supernatural abilities. It's very much so a fantasy because of that. It's also a really powerful harem. Issei definitely has kind of a relationship with Risa, but he keeps it up with the other girls, especially the other girls in the club, which they expand out to a good number of them, all which tend to have this kind of relationship with him, which he does not prevent from being fostered. So of course he's always trying to become basically a harem king. And that's the probably main draw off for this series. And one of the reasons I rated a 3, because it just, sometimes the entire perversion of it and, you know, the breast jokes just go on a little too much, and the things involving, you know, the fact that all these women have pretty large chests and things happen with them. If it wasn't for the interesting characters that they actually are and their kind of histories and the storyline, probably would be saying no to recommending this one, but I can say 3. Rated 3. Now, if you're using it in a BESM game, I'd say 500 points. You're going to make your characters either members of the Occult Research Club or a similar club event, and their good fact is they're probably going to be devils or another supernatural group. It'll probably be up to your characters of the exact origins of the entire group as a whole, but that's going to be something that you're sort of going to work out with them. I'd recommend keeping the simple, keep it with the devils. And they're, of course, going to have various misadventures with other groups of supernatural beings along the way, whether you're dealing with rival devils or you're dealing with angels, fallen angels, yokai, vampires, etc., etc. You're going to have some kind of misadventures, and many of the times they're going to be based around their characters and their backstories, whether it's the actual characters and backstories they developed, or NPCs that you're throwing in a group. And of course, you're going to have basically the ruler of them, the Risa type character, or Risa herself if you're using her, be an NPC. I would definitely recommend it, and that you're going to be basically working under this noble devil and dealing out with the adventures that deal with that, involved with her/him, if depending on the team you want to really build, and again, depending on the characters you want to use. I would definitely recommend throwing a few NPCs into your club just to make sure that you have points in time where you can come up with more interesting storylines related to them if you want to. And the last one I want to talk about is Robot Girl Z. You're going to involve a group, it involves a group of Toei robot girls, these 3 girls that are called Team Z, effectively based upon the Manazer Z kind of series of anime that went out back in the 60s, so classic anime, and they're basically all based on robots, giant robots from those series. And, well, these team of girls basically works for this laboratory where they're promoting photon energy, and occasionally have to deal with these beast girls from the evil empire that are trying to steal the energy and kind of defeat them. And oftentimes, they also might just kind of beat them up because they feel like it, because they're there and doing something probably bad, but not as bad as it could be, because they are bad girls, technically. So it's interesting that there's not always provoked in order to beat them up. That's the only thing about it. Not always provoked. So it's a parody. I could just say comedy because it really is, but a parody is a much better way of saying it because they're kind of ridiculous. It parodies the kind of giant robots and giant robot fights, where they're technically girls with transformations that fight out things, that fight each other, and the Team Z is just sort of ridiculous parody of the characters and the robots, so they're just ridiculous in comparison to what the original material would be. It's also Mecha, because they're mecha girls. That's an easy way of saying it. It's based on giant robots. So, of course, you've got the feel of giant robots from a lot of the things they do and the powers that they have. They mimic a lot of the powers of the giant robots they're based upon. And it's a magical girl. They really have that kind of magical girl version of the transformation that gives you this kind of mixture feeling of mecha and magical. Very kind of unusual one, but not one that we have seen before in other series. So it's not an impossible one, but not in a parody series. Now I rate this one a 4, just because it's pretty silly, and it's a pretty decent parody that got some very good comedy in it. Now if you're using this in a BESM game, I'd recommend 400 points. You're going to make your characters the members of a team, like Team Z. They're probably going to be their own independent team, and of course they're going to be working for the laboratory, promoting photon energy, and dealing with the Beast Girls and the evil Empire occasionally when they try to steal energy or do bad things around them. And it's going to be this juxtaposition of them just sort of doing a little bit of their normal life, which are probably going to do a lot of stuff together. They're going to be kind of compatriots, oftentimes doing some things in their normal lives together, and then kind of teaming up and fighting things. There's going to be a little bit of that. And of course, there's going to be definitely a lot of parity in the way you build things and the things they fight and the kind of encounters they get into, along with just comedic situations in general. All while the fact that they have their little magical girl transformations based upon Mecha. So it'll end up, they'll get into misadventures. That's the way basically you're going to describe what your characters are getting into. Misadventures along the way of, you know, trying to promote this new powerful energy and dealing with the opponents that are trying to steal it, and they're probably going to be very incompetent along the way, regardless. So, that's it for today. I introduced you to 4 more anime series, which I gave you a little bit of review on them, and I gave you some suggestions how to use them in your BESM game. The fact is, well, besides the point values and the skills, you could probably use these in any role-playing game system and easily adapt them once you just get the basic idea of them. Adapting the powers is another thing entirely, but the fact is, adapting them to another game is possible. So, if you have any questions, comments, anything you want to say, anything you think I left out, please leave in the comments below. Please like, share, and subscribe. Show support with the channel, the Empire, the work I do. If you want to show some extra support, you can always check out my Patreon. Link in the description below. But regardless, until the next time, I bid you farewell.